I'm Tom. You're Chris. Nice to
What
meet
up?
you. Uh,
Likewise.
yeah, so I've been jamming out to, I was gonna say the album, but all the singles that you guys have released.
Right.
So I notice a lot of bands actually going to, let me start this. Let me do this. For those of you listening, this is Chris with Hillhaven. Uh,
Hello.
they're pretty fucking cool. Uh,
Thanks, man.
so I'm trying to like close windows and shit.
That's
Uh,
okay.
I'm so like behind. I'm gonna get this started. Hold on, I gotta do shit. Uh,
It's all right. It's all right. I've had a few interviews like that today and it was my fault on those, so no worries.
so you you have done some other projects, right? Like Ice Nine Kills. Um, were you in Galactic Empire or
I
from it?
was, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we got you've got some experience prior to like Hillhaven. What was the catalyst for Hillhaven coming out and getting going?
Yeah, so that was it was a couple of things. I mean, one, when I was at the tail end of, or what I knew would be the tail end of my time filling in with Ice Nine, I kind of had this moment where I realized that I sort of got swept up um in a couple of different things. Like the first thing was I had kind of gotten away from any sort of creativity when it came to music. I've had another band called Illustrium since high school, which is like a progressive death metal kind of thing, and that's always something that I'll have. Yeah, I could tell by your shirt that you'd probably
Yeah,
dig our band. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, like but even with that, it had been a while since I had done any work for it, and so I was just kind of focused on like my job as a guitar player, and adjacent to that, I got swept up in a lot of like the vanity that comes with it, of just like sort of like the Instagram status, and the follower count, and like stuff that's really superficial and doesn't really mean a whole lot in the long
right,
run. And it all just kind of hit me at once one day that, like, I had been focusing on the wrong things for a while. Um and also kind of adjacent to that was I had written a song that wound up being our song that's called Gaps, that we put out back in June. But I had originally written it to be used for a different band. And we had put the whole song together, and then that band wound up not using it. And I had this feeling about it that I was like, I really like this. And I had done a lot of like co-writing and stuff. I wrote instrumentals on I think 4 or 5 songs on From Ashes to News Blackout records. So Maddie and I had worked together before. Ricky and I had worked together on projects and stuff, but I was always on the instrumental side of things. I had never done like from top to bottom, the full like vocals, lyrics, everything, as far as the writing was concerned. Um, and so I was proud of it, and I was like, man, I want this to be used for something,
yeah,
but it had the other band's singer on it, and I sent it to Maddie to listen to, and I didn't really know what I was after. Like it wasn't like, yo, like I want to do a band. Like it was like, yo, like could I sell this to somebody, or like is there like a label who would want to pick this up, or you know what I mean? Like I don't really know.
yeah,
Um and he was just like, I mean, if you're gonna do a project, like if you're gonna do something with this and you want a drummer on it, like let me know, because this song's rad. And so that's kind of when the gears started turning of like, okay, well, I don't think the original singer is going to be coming over anytime soon. So, I don't really know how I could find somebody else. That sounds like a bit of a process. So, I redid the vocals on it, and then I sent both files in a Dropbox folder to Maddie and a few other people, and then some like casual listener friends and stuff, just to try to get some honest feedback. And it just said singer one and singer two, because I didn't want anybody like, voting for or against me. I just wanted to know which one they liked better. And surprisingly, um, most of the responses and feedback that I got wound up being in favor of my track. So, that was I guess the sort of deciding point of like, okay, especially at that time, I had a bit of a problem with the sound of my own voice. That was the biggest mental hurdle to get
Oh
over. But I
yeah.
was like, other people seem to like it, so I guess, and now I've proven to myself that I can do a song from start to finish. And I think it also helped that like I had originally written it for somebody else to sing, so a lot of that self-consciousness and like, oh, I sound stupid, like none of that existed because I wasn't really thinking about me doing it. I was just thinking about like what made it sound good. And so that helped me kind of turn off that end of the insecurities, for from a creative perspective. And so, yeah, that was kind of the catalyst for the whole thing of like sort of knowing that I could do it and knowing that people liked it when I did it. And I was like, all right, well, I think I can do this. So, um, just started writing stuff, and then as that was happening, Maddie and I were contacting other people to try to get them involved. And I think much to everybody's surprise, we wound up actually getting a group of guys together that all got along and like enjoyed each other's company. And you
Yeah.
know yeah, like just we all showed up to do the music videos, and it was like, holy shit, everybody's here, like it's happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
um so I think pretty much all of us to some degree sort of wondered or even assumed at times that this was just going to be one of those things that you talk about with your friends for a couple of months and nothing actually comes out of it, and it just
Yeah.
wound up being like, oh, a cool what if. And I guess I was just stubborn enough that I didn't want to let it be that. you know
Yeah. Well, and here you are, right? Like, what do you guys, six singles out, or is it five?
Seven now, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, we just put the seventh one out on the holy shit, it was only 5 days ago. Dude, when you're on tour, dude, it's a
Yeah.
vortex. Like this feels like an eternity, but yeah, no, it's only been 5 days.
You're like,
So,
oh
okay.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I mean, that's it's anytime you're focused on like work and not worried about what day it is, the day's just
Well, and that's my whole life because being on the road professionally, like that you don't have normal hours, you don't have normal weeks.
right.
So like days mean nothing to me.
Yeah.
The day of the week is like the least important thing. Dates are what's important, and I still fuck those up half the time. Um, so it's it's very it can be very disorienting. It drives my wife nuts because she'll be like, "All right, on Thursday, when I'm home, she'll be like, "Yeah, Thursday we got to go do this or whatever." And then Thursday comes around and she's like, "Hey, we got to go." And I'm like, "Go where?" You know what I mean? She's like, "It's Thursday." And I'm like, "Okay." Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, these words you're saying, there's no meaning to Thursday. I don't know what
Yeah.
that means.
I get it, dude. I literally live by my calendar. Like I wake up in the morning, I don't care what day or what date it is. Like it's just, okay, what do I have to do today? Awesome. Get all this done, move on to the next day. And I share it with my wife and my daughter. And if they're not putting stuff in, I'm like,
It's
oh,
not
we got this to
happening.
do. I'm like, sorry, I got something else.
Yeah, yeah. Not according to this, we don't figure it
Right.
out. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
See ya.
Yeah, right.
So what got you
Yeah.
started playing music originally?
This is gonna sound like a joke. I promise it's 100% true. Lindsay Lohan. Do you know that you remember that movie Freaky Friday that she did with Jamie
Like
Lee Curtis?
I never watched it, but I know what
Sure.
you're talking about. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, so that was I mean, I was 10, so yeah, 22 years ago. Uh but that her character is in like a garage punk band, and the very early on in the movie she gets in a fight with the family or whatever. She's a petulant teenager, and walks out into the garage. All her friends are already there, and she just plugs in this Telecaster and starts hitting power chords. And I was like, like that's the shit. That's it. That's what I want. And that movie with Jack Black, School of Rock, came out that same year too. So it was just like uh it was two very formative pieces of cinema for me as a 10-year-old. in quick succession. And so that was, yeah, that was the year that my parents bought me my first guitar, and it was tunnel vision after that. And I joined, I like I said, that movie School of Rock was a big deal for me. And then shortly after that, my mom was like, "Hey, so that's like a real thing. Like Jack Black's not there, but there's an actual School of Rock because I grew up
You
like
like it?
outside of Philly."
Oh yeah,
And it's now a nation, or I think even worldwide, like franchised thing. But at the time, it was just it had just been in Philly, and then they had just opened up a second franchise, like 40 minutes from my house or something. And um and so I was the first kid to sign up, and it was it's an extracurricular thing. You have a 3 hour rehearsal once a week, you have a 45-minute lesson once a week, and at the end of every quarter, so it's every 3 months or so, you're playing a weekend of shows, like cover shows. So the first one that I did was Pink Floyd's The Wall. That's what at the time, when every school that would open, that's the first show that they would do for whatever reason. And so yeah, every few months from age 10 to when I graduated high school, I was doing like rock shows, um like on a regular basis. So
that's crazy.
by the time I was like 14, I had, apart from, the stadiums and arenas, I had played on every major stage in Philly. And yeah, so it's like I became very comfortable with that very early on. Um and Yeah, that was just, and that's all. I mean, I think that's also like the ultimate reason for why I wound up being a hired gun as my day job, because I just got really good at learning songs.
Yeah,
Just like listening by ear and learning what they're doing and being able to do it relatively quickly, because I also, and this is not, I'm not trying to toot my own horn. At the time, I happened to be one of the better players that was in the school. And so when something would happen, like if a kid would quit, or somebody would get themselves in trouble and they would get taken off a song or whatever, oftentimes I would be the one that they would ask to do it, because they knew that I could get it done quickly. So um, yeah, that was like how it all started. And then, probably when I was 15 or 16 is when I started the band that would eventually become Illustrium, that death metal project that I talked about. And Surprisingly, with that one, um we never really got touring, that band. It was that we always wanted to, and like it always just seemed like this far out of reach, like I don't even know how we make this happen kind of thing. Um but and now that now that the band like is on a label and stuff, we don't tour because we're all adults and have careers.
doing other stuff. Yeah,
Um but yeah, so that was where my focus went later on, but yeah, so School of Rock was that was the biggest thing for sure. That's the reason that I wound up getting into metal, because I was really averse to metal at first, and they put me in a classic metal show. There was a season where they were doing Zeppelin and they were doing classic metal, and everyone wanted to do Zeppelin. And I was like, oh, like I'm a shoe-in for the Zeppelin show. Like I was a bit egotistical at that point at, 14.
yeah,
And my teacher was like, "You're gonna be really mad at me. I need you to do the metal show." And I was like, fuck, dude, like, why? Come on, man. Like, why? What have I done? What did I do wrong? You know what I mean? And
right.
he's just like, no, he's like, you didn't do anything wrong, man. This stuff is hard. Like he's like we can't we can't do this show without like some capable players. Like some of this stuff is really difficult, and like I need you, and he was like, if you do this, I'll give you anything that you want next season. Just please do this show. And I was like, fuck, okay, whatever. And and then he was like, all right, here's the first song you're gonna learn, and he put on Creeping Death.
Oh,
And I was like, what is this, dude?
this is my
Like,
shit. I gotta.
yeah, I was like, dude, I was like, hold on, like, what are we listening to? And like, I mean, literally right out of the gate, dun, 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 like I was just like, okay, hold on, hold the phone. Like, what are we doing? What is this? And he was like, this is Metallica. And I was like, no, it's not. Like, because I had only heard like Enter Sandman on the radio. Like
Right.
now I love that era of Metallica. But back then I was like, he's like the weird guy that goes, yeah, all the time. You know what I mean? Like this, and he was like, no, this is like OG, like, what some people call real Metallica. You know what I mean? This is like when they were kids, when they were young, when they were just starting out. And I was like, holy shit. And he was telling me all the guitar stuff about like, yeah, all of this riff is downstrokes, and then, when the solo came in, I was like, what the fuck? Like
Yeah.
it was just 45 minutes of me having my entire world ripped apart by one song. Um, and that was it, dude. Like it was just heavy shit from that day forward. Like I couldn't be bothered with anything else. Um, Later in my School of Rock career, I got put in a Frank Zappa show. I hated every second of it, dude. I was like now I can appreciate some Zappa songs, but like at the time, man, as like a metalhead in high school, I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
what the fuck? Like he's singing about geese and yeast infections. Like, what the fuck is this, man? Like, this is like the stupidest shit I've ever heard. Um, and yeah, but it was like I kind of get chills like thinking back to it, you know what I mean? But yeah, it was just like literally that moment, like hearing that opening riff of Creeping Death was just like was it. Like and it was my tunnel vision that Lindsay Lohan had given me had just gotten that much narrower. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um and I also had, I'm kind of ranting at this point, but like, my dad had told me when I was younger that, he wanted to be a surgeon when he was a kid. And um, and when it came time to do like the pre-med qualifications or whatever, he got kind of intimidated and he didn't pursue it, and he always kind of kicked himself for that. So I took that like so deep to heart that like even when I was graduating high school and my parents started having, and I mean they were always very supportive. I grew up with means. I was a very privileged kid, so like I had all the gear that I wanted and needed, and they had me in School of Rock for that, all those years, and would drive me to shows before I had a license and all kinds of stuff. But they had the responsible parent talk of like, maybe you should start thinking about like a career, which at the time obviously does not feel like a responsible talk. It feels like a middle
Right.
finger. Um, but it was just like, no, man, like you told me that there was one thing you wanted and then you didn't do it and you kicked yourself for it forever. Why would I do that?
Right.
You know what I mean? Um, so it was, like a lot of musicians, I think it was just overall stubbornness that got me here. You know what I mean? But
Well, yeah,
yes, that's
being a
the
rebellious teenager, you're like, no, like you wanted that. You didn't even try it. I'm gonna go, whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, I think as far as teenage rebellion, I think I was pretty easy on them. Like, I didn't drink until I was 21. I didn't have any run-ins with the law. That's not true. I had one run-in. I shoplifted at 14. I got arrested. That was fun. But like I didn't do most of the things that like rebellious teenagers do, you know?
Yeah.
So I think me being like, no, like this is what I like, and I'm also good at it, like I think that was a pretty reasonable thing for me to push back on, you know.
Yeah.
And
No,
they certainly would not be able to argue that now, but
right. Yeah. You appear not to be doing too bad for yourself. I mean, uh you've had more success thus far than I would say probably 95% of the bands or musicians that even pick up an instrument.
yeah, I mean, and as weird as it is to like, affirm a claim like that, like objectively that is true. Like most people who pick up a guitar or any kind of instrument don't even ever wind up touring once.
Right.
So to be able to not only make a living at it, but like a, a pretty decent living. Like I own a house, I've got two kids, we own our cars outright. Like I don't, we don't have any car payments or whatever. Or my house is almost paid off and we bought it last year. You know what I mean? Like things are going pretty fucking well,
Yeah.
So and I'm historically not great at like, saying good things about myself or taking compliments or whatever, but like when I complain about this job or whatever, like, because it is a cool job, but at a certain point it is your job. So there's going to be
Yeah.
days that you don't feel like doing it, you know? And whenever I have those conversations with people, like they're always like, "Oh, poor you." You know what I mean? Like you get to, oh, you got to go to Japan again. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm just like, listen, I get it. Like, it's not lost on me that this is cool. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, I realize I'm
First
very
world
fortunate.
problems, you know?
Oh, 100% first world problems. Yeah. And like, but at the end of the day, like, I recognize that I'm very fortunate to do this, and I'm very grateful that I've had the opportunity to play the stages and the tours that I've had the opportunity to play. And, um, it's a privilege to be jaded about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people don't really get that though. Like it doesn't matter how awesome your life is, right? Or how fortunate you are. There's still those days where you're like, God, this like I just kind of want to be at home and just hang out
Yeah.
with my family, you know?
100%. Yeah, I mean, when I'm spending time with my family, there's the voice in the back of my head that's like, you're not working on something, like you're being fucking lazy. This is stupid. But then when
Yeah,
I'm working on something, I feel guilty for not spending time with my family. So it's a never ending cycle. And yeah, I mean, I used to say, like, in the Galactic Empire days, we used to joke that, like, I wish our lives were as cool as everyone on Instagram thinks they are.
right,
Because you post the pictures in front of 15,000 people at Grass Pop or whatever, and everyone's like, "Oh shit, dude, like you're living the life." And it's like, I mean, I live in a vehicle and I'm in airports 90% of my year. You know what I mean?
right,
Like it's the even the sort of what I'll call the upper echelon, or at least my what has so far been the upper echelon of my touring career, like being in my own hotel room on a day off and traveling in a bus and whatever. Like, it is still, like, it can be super lonely, it can be really isolating, your hours are crazy weird, like you don't start work until 9 p.m., and then after it's over, you can't go to sleep until 4 in the morning because the adrenaline hasn't worn off, so your sleep schedule's all fucked up. um like I said, there's so many. I mean, if we're on a US tour or a Europe tour, you're in a bus. If you're anywhere else, it's fly dates. If you play a show, you go to the airport, you fly to the next one. And that's exhausting, dude,
yeah,
And I'm not at the point yet where I'm flying first class anywhere. So it'll just be like 14 hours in coach just to get out for a couple of shows in Japan sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, so, like, while it is, like, I understand that the nature of my job is very, unique relative to other people, and that it is objectively very cool that this is what I get to do. And people will be like, "Oh, I work 4 10-hour shifts." And I'm like, "Cool, I work 4 1-hour shifts,"
right,
like, uh because we have a crew and guitar techs and whatever. So, like, I don't have to be in the venue until 2:30 for sound check. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm very privileged and spoiled and all that kind of stuff. But, your frame of reference is all you have. You know what
right.
I mean? So, while I definitely am happy that I'm no longer delivering pizza for a living, like, there are still things about my job that can bum me out or piss me off or whatever,
For
like,
sure.
it's unavoidable.
It's being a hired gun, you always have a boss, you know?
Right, that too.
It's just like going to work a fucking 9 to 5, except, because you're essentially under someone's thumb. Like you have to do it this way. It's got to be like this. You
Absolutely. Yep.
like you were saying earlier, you didn't really have any creativity. You're doing what they're telling you to do. And you're just like, all right, like,
Cool. Exactly. Exactly. And, and again, like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's the way that I pay my bills. I'm super super grateful for it. But yeah, like, um, I think most people who get into music think that it's going to be their own band that takes them
yeah,
where they want to be. And a lot of that is that sort of rebellious teenager, kind of have a problem with authority. You want to be your own boss. You don't want to answer to anybody else. So even, like, in my case, where my bosses are fantastic, that we're treated very well, and like, they're very nice and accommodating, and there's basically, I mean, virtually nothing to like actually complain about. um there still is that feeling of, like, still somebody's employee. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, and that's just, obviously it's more than tolerable,
yeah,
it's a very easy trade-off to accept. but it's, like that voice, that young kid never really goes away. You know what I mean? Where it's
Yeah,
like it's still, um, you hear people talk about like like when people sort of give like the cautionary tale of like not to compare yourself to other people, they talk about like the Dave Mustaine and Metallica thing, where like Megadeth is wildly successful, but it's not as successful as Metallica. So you know what I mean? Like
right.
he probably has some days about that. You know what I mean?
Well,
Um,
probably, but who like at the end of the day, like for Dave specifically, who else can say they've been in two of the most influential bands in heavy metal
Right.
at all?
Of course. And like, and so that's like us from an outsider's perspective of just like, dude, like you made it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? But I'm sure he still has days. And I mean, in the past, he's talked about it of how like it was like for years and years and years, it was really difficult for him to get over the fact that it just wasn't Metallica. You know what I
right.
mean? So it can be hard to silence that voice. You know what I mean? Things are going really well for me, but every now and again, something stupid happens that's like the most minor inconvenience, and that kid in the back of my head that's
You're
like,
like,
this wouldn't happen if you were your own boss. You
right.
know what I mean? Like, and you
But
have
it
to be like,
would. It
yeah.
absolutely would.
Also, yes, yeah, that's the other thing is like not only would this happen, but it would be your fucking problem. Like you
Yeah,
you wouldn't just like have to go where they told you to go. You would be the one having to figure out where to go. You know what I
yeah,
mean? It's so much more stressful to be the boss and to be the one assuming all the risk and stuff like that. And I'm finding that out now. But
that that's
but
exactly
yeah.
it. Like I'm that business owner that's like, if something fucks up, it's no one's fault but mine, and I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
now I gotta fix this. Like all the years I was like, man, I just want to work for myself and do my own thing, and I'm in that position, and I'm like, holy fuck, I thought I could have more time off, but I get like you, right? Like no time
Yeah.
off. It's you're always on all the time. Like fuck.
Yeah, there's no such thing as time off when it's your own thing, because even if you don't actually have anything to do, it's like the worst when you don't have anything to do for that venture that day, because you're like there's got to be something. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like it's like driving you nuts. You're like you get that feeling like there's a test you didn't study for. You're like, I know I'm forgetting something. Like I know there's something that I'm not doing right now that's gonna fuck me up later. And even if that isn't the case, like it's just your brain is on it all the time.
Yeah. It really is. You don't ever get off of it. It's what's that next thing? What do I have to do next? Always. My wife's like, "What are you thinking about?" I'm like, "Well, my fucking schedule tomorrow." And she's like, "But it's like 3 p.m." Like, I know, but I still have, like I've got to be on and ready to go like all the time. If my
Right.
phone rings, I go like now.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
totally
That's
get it.
yeah. Yeah. It's
So let
it's
me
the
ask you
blessing
this.
and the curse.
Yes, yeah. So we've talked a lot about your like touring and what have you. Like out of the singles you guys did for Hillhaven, is there one that sticks out to you like more than any other?
Yeah, honestly, it would probably be kind of an even tie between the most recent two that we've put out. So we put a song called Temple and Tomb out last month, and then we just dropped a new one that's called This Time Tomorrow. And I think the main reason, apart from the reception that we've gotten on those songs, is the fact that they're like literally the antithesis of one another.
Yes.
Most of what we've put out this year, has been a lot of like, processing negative emotions and trauma and interactions with other people that, kind of eat away at you. And, there's a lot of shit talk and a lot of sarcasm and a lot of, like flipping people off and whatever. Um, and Temple and Tomb was kind of like the bottom point. You know what I mean? It's like that was the song that came together when I was like at my lowest. Um, and then This Time Tomorrow is the what I think became very like a very necessary thing, which was a song that kind of looked back on everything that had been discussed in the prior singles, from like a healthier, more optimistic, future oriented kind of mindset. And so that was, it was a very like cathartic thing for me. And we're also finding out in real time that other people are feeling the same way
Yeah.
about each song, and about them kind of as a almost pairing. Um, People hear Temple and Tomb, and we get a comment about, how they're really able to relate it to whatever they're struggling with. And then they watch or hear This Time Tomorrow, and then they tell us about how, like, they needed that because like, a lot of times when you're in those dark and low points, um sometimes there's part of you that doesn't really even want it to get better. You know what I
Right.
mean? You kind of get comfortable um in your
Misery.
depression, or your, or whatever it is. Yeah, your misery. Yeah. And you just kind of let it win for a while. And so to be able to, that's been definitely the biggest, like, kind of craziest and tough to process thing about this, is the idea that something that I created could have that kind of impact on somebody. Because even just saying that out loud, like, it sounds ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
I'm inherently a very self-deprecating person, so not full-blown nihilism, but just kind of like, I feel like it's super realistic of, like, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, you don't really matter that much. Like, talking
Yeah.
about myself, like, so when there's a comment somewhere about, like, I really needed this because of X, Y, and Z, like, this song really did whatever for me. Like, it's really difficult to process, and it's difficult to respond to as well, because, like, all I can say is thank you, because I can't properly express, like, how I'm feeling about it, because it just doesn't, it like doesn't even compute with my brain. It's like, it's the polar opposite of, like, when you get a call that, like, a loved one suddenly passed away. You know what I mean? You don't feel the emotion right away. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's like, it takes sometimes, like, an entire day or two for it to actually hit you, and you spend time, like, why am I not, like, crying? Why am I, like, I feel like, why am I kind of feeling nothing about this right now? You know what I mean? It's literally the exact opposite of that, of getting comments like that, because it's like, I don't even really know how to process what's being expressed to me, because, like, it doesn't feel real, I guess. Like, it doesn't feel like this is something that should or would have ever happened.
So
So,
do you feel like you have a little bit of imposter syndrome in that like scenario?
oh, dude, 100%. I mean, I have imposter syndrome in everything, like, my gig now, I've had this gig for 5 years. And still to this day, I still have that, like, oh, it's just a matter of time before they figure out you really suck. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? That's
Yeah,
that's my whole life.
that sucks. But
Yeah.
ob obviously, right? Like you've been doing this a little bit now. Like there you have a talent. You have a very good talent. I think that a lot of people they don't get to that level, right? And even
Right.
the people that do get to that level, they don't know how to translate that into, like an income, right? Like this is
Right.
your career. So again,
Hmm.
right? Like that's better than 95% of the musicians that pick up an instrument,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. And it does help. Like, I recognize that even in those moments of imposter syndrome, that, like, that's what I'm feeling, like, it's just my brain telling me that, obviously I've worked hard to be where I am, and I've achieved things that most people who decide that they want to play guitar never get anywhere close to.
Right.
Um uh and that, it doesn't make any sense to get sucked into, oh, but, yeah, I have this, but I don't have that. And so it's, you know what I mean? Or, um, yeah, I have this, but it's a fluke. It's like, no, it's not really a fluke. Like, there was a lot of work, excuse me, that went into this. But, so I'm able to identify that, like, there's a side of my brain that's just factually incorrect, but most of the time that's the loudest part,
I
you
think we
know?
all honestly, I think everyone deals with that, right?
Mhm.
Like I'm sure your dad, even at his height, would say there were days that he had, he felt like an imposter. I mean, all everyone I've talked to does,
Yeah.
literally. So Like
The only people that I've ever met that don't have imposter syndrome are either psychopaths or they suck at what they do. Like you're never going to talk to like you can find the best guitar player in the world and they'll tell you that they had a shit night. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like they'll just be like, "Yeah, I just wasn't playing well tonight." And everybody else is like, "What the fuck are you talking about? That was flawless." You know what I mean? But then, there's like bedroom guitar players, which there's nothing wrong if you just play guitar in your bedroom. That's not what I'm throwing shade at. There's people that you know, just buy gear and participate in internet conversations and act like they are just this like absolute authority on whatever the subject is that they're talking about. And it's like, dude, you have no credentials, you have no experience, you have no skills to back up the bullshit that you're saying right now. You know what I mean? So like it's the only people I think who don't have imposter syndrome to some degree are like straight up delusional.
that's I think that's a fair statement though, right? Because
Right.
like there's that uh by having a conversation with my daughter about her driving yesterday. She was getting ready to go to work and frightened. She's like, I'm so afraid. And I told you earlier, she's just started driving.
Hmm.
And I think today was like day 3 of driving by herself. She's like, I'm so afraid. Well, that fear is good. It helps keep you grounded, right?
Yeah.
In what reality is. So even that like imposter syndrome, it like I feel like there's a little bit of it, right? In moderation, it's good because it helps you want to stay like at the top of your game so you're not found out. You know what I mean?
Right, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, I've never thought about it in that specific way, but you're 100% right. Like um I think and it honestly probably comes from some sort of like primal survival, instinct somewhere, that like it's if you let your ego run away too much, you're going to wind up getting eaten by something. You know what I mean? Like it's probably
Yeah,
probably comes from somewhere in there. But yeah, it's definitely I think it's healthy in doses. I guess I don't struggle with it as much as I used to. It's probably ramping up a little bit more now with the Hillhaven stuff, just because I've never been the face of something.
right.
Um, so like even if I was technically like one of the people who was like more responsible for it than others, like it was um I was still like the guitar player. You know what I mean? Like so like I
Yeah,
wasn't I wasn't I wasn't at the forefront. Um so there's definitely been a bit of an adjustment period and still is an adjustment period that I'm dealing with when it comes to this stuff. But yeah, it's gotten better over the last couple of years, just kind of allowing myself to accept the fact that like no, like I did get here like because I did something right. Like yeah, I also think objectively like it's hard to argue that there wasn't any right place, right time. Like there definitely was a lot of luck. Like the gig that I have now is with a band from another country. And the only reason that I wound up even on the radar of that band in that country is because my old band got offered to open in that country. You know what I mean? So it was like and the only reason that band was Galactic Empire, and the only reason that Galactic Empire happened is because we made a joke video and put it out at the right time. You know what I mean? Like, and it
yeah,
went viral, and then we wound up in a career for it. You know what I mean? So, like, there definitely, there definitely is a lot of timing. There definitely is a lot of luck as far as I'm concerned. But like, if you're in the right place at the right time and you haven't done the prep work in advance, then the place and time don't mean anything.
right. Well,
So,
that's exactly it, right? Like you put in the work to learn the skill, to do the thing, to be, so when you're in that position and you get the offer, you can do it and perform well, and just to be in the position to get the offer, right? And I
right.
think a lot of people, they they're really good. That's why the majority of musicians don't make it to like your level of success, right? Like the majority of them are really good at one thing. They can't do multiple, right? Like that one thing, they could be the best guitar player in the world and never go outside of their bedroom, right? Or
Right.
they can be out there and do the networking, but they don't have the skill to actually play the music, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I think, on one hand, we're in the best environment like in history um to be somebody who lacks one or both of those skills because like if you don't really have the networking ability but you have the skill and you have an iPhone, you can wind up finding yourself in a pretty lucrative or, pretty beneficial situation
Yeah,
just because of social media, you know what I mean? Or, if you have I honestly I'm not even sure if I think like the people skills or or just the technical skills are more valuable because I think I guess it just depends on how open you are to uh like different paths within that like general like career umbrella.
yeah,
Um, if you're like, I'm gonna be a musician, but you're not that great of a player, but you're really good at talking to people, and then you're like, oh shit, like I could be a manager or a booking agent or like something like that. Like that could be really valuable. Whereas like if you're like, I'm gonna be a musician, I'm a really good guitar player, but like I can't talk to people to save my life, then like you're kind of stuck,
hmm,
historically anyway. Obviously now with social media and stuff, it's different, but um, so I don't really know like which one would be more beneficial. I think it just kind of depends. And I also think a lot of people in like label and management positions probably were that, like I was going to be a musician, but then I realized that this was probably a better path for me. But sometimes the problem is they're still creatives at heart.
yeah,
And creatives historically are not always the best people to run businesses, you
yeah,
know? Um, and so a lot of times they have a really good team surrounding them, but like getting a hold of that one person is like, it seems like the most impossible thing. Um, so it can go both ways, I guess, but yeah, I mean, there definitely is a necessity for both, um, depending on the situation that you find yourself in. If you're lucky enough that you're in a band that gets big and you just get to be the guy that's creative and you don't really worry about stuff because you got other band members that can handle that other shit, then great. You know what I
yeah.
mean? But that it's not always how it pans out.
No, unfortunately, it's not. So, what's the goal with Hillhaven over the next like 12 months?
It's kind of nebulous at the moment. Like, in a perfect world, I want to get the band on tour. Um, want to keep putting music out. There's already, new material that's being finished, so that won't be a problem. But, we'll have to figure out how to do more music videos, and so there'll be some logistical things as far as that's concerned. Um, and I think I mentioned earlier, there was a plan for a record, but we just didn't have the infrastructure there. Like, because you want to do like merch bundles and like proper marketing and all that kind of stuff, and um, we just didn't have all of that in place when it probably would have been time to announce a record. So we'll have to have that conversation. I think right now we're just going to get through this first show and then sort of see how everybody feels about it. I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say that while it seems that everybody is very happy with the way that things are going and whatever, I also recognize that if this becomes a bigger time commitment, then you never really know what could happen as far as lineups are concerned. But I
Yeah,
think it's safe to say I think it's safe to say at this point that like I'm gonna make sure that this keeps going in, as pure of a form as I can maintain it. Um, so I want to get the band on the road. Um, would like to, be moving towards a larger body of work, whether that's an EP or an album or whatever, but just kind of figuring out what that's going to look like and what the plan would need to be in order to do that. And honestly, I'm probably a little bit under the gun because like before we started rolling this out, I had all the songs done and I knew what the release plan was going to be and I had talked to people about it and I like had it, and now I've just been focusing on that all year. And now that we're like at the tail end of it, I'm like, probably should have thought of like the next part of it, but you know, at the same time, like I didn't even really know if it was gonna work.
go anywhere. Yeah.
So now it's like I think the biggest hope is that I can find the right people to like add to the team that I can be like, all right, this is what I want to do. How do we do this? You know what I mean? Because like I figured it out the first time. I don't know if I have the capacity to do that again. Um, but yeah, we'll see what happens. But like I definitely like I want to make sure that this project keeps going. So I'm gonna do everything that I can to see to that.
I'm going to ask that the next step, whatever it looks like, you get some sort of vinyl out.
Okay.
Like I'm a vinyl junkie, dude. Um, I'm like, oh, give me another record. Give me another you know what
Right,
I
right,
mean?
right, right. Yeah, I mean, whenever there is an album or an EP or whatever it is that happens, I'm sure that one of the merch bundles will include some kind of vinyl, option. Yeah, and that was the other thing with this is like I don't want to announce an album and just have it be digital only. You know
Right.
what I mean? Not have a t-shirt ready for it, not have a, you know, fucking uh what do they call those things? Tapestry, the banners that
The
people can
banners that
hang
hang
up
on
and
your
shit.
wall. Yeah.
That's I mean, maybe that's not what bands in this space do. I come from like more underground, so that's always what it looks like when bands that I listened to when I was younger would put a record out. But um
Now, I was at a
yeah,
show the other night. They had 6 banners. I was like, holy shit, I've never seen so many.
that's crazy. Yeah, I
It
mean,
was,
that must be a band that like knows that they fucking sell banners because
yeah,
like I've never I've never seen a band. Most of the bands that I've toured with have never even had a banner available for sale.
right.
So,
I spent
but
$150 at their merch table, if that says anything.
there you
Like,
go. I guess that's the right move for them. Um yeah, because that I think that's the thing that like is fascinating me most about like learning the ins and outs of all of this is like because I've been doing the music thing for a while, so um kind of having to learn the business part of it, as stressful as it is like kind of fun
yeah,
too, trying to track metrics and use that to like predict or make decisions accordingly or whatever, but we'll see. Fingers crossed, man. That's all I can
it,
do at this point.
I hear you. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm obviously you're on tour right now. You got other shit going on. That's like, okay, I'm sure you're thinking about what's the balance here. Like, I gotta
Hmm.
I gotta keep this because I still need my income to pay my bills and do all this other shit. But man, I really want to translate that over to this and get this up and going.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, if, they're definitely just, I mean, just speaking for myself, because obviously I can't speak for anybody else, but like they could, if enough offers start coming through, like there's gonna need to be decisions that are made. You know what I mean? There's gonna have to be a conversation about what's gonna be the priority and I mean, I'll never, none of us will be able to just like, hop in a vehicle and go eat shit for 8 months like most new bands have to do just
Right.
because like we need to
You're
feed
old.
ourselves. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
old. Yeah, exactly. Like I got kids. So like we won't be able to hit it quite that hard, but like, hopefully we'll be able to kind of find the right spots and, get in front of some of the right audiences and find a way to grow this in an appropriate way.
Hell yeah. So I'm gonna ask you this. This is the big one.
Okay.
What's the favorite stage you've played on or favorite show that you've played?
Yeah, that's tough. Well, I mean, there was a couple like when I was filling in with Ice Nine, we did a couple of stadium shows with Metallica. That was definitely like a big one. I think the first one that we did in Vegas, I think that was definitely the biggest like holy shit, like I'm playing a stadium today kind of thing. Uh when Galactic Empire did Grass Pop back in that would have been like 2017, maybe 2018. Um, that one was a crazy one because like it was like the third stage or whatever, which is like a really big tent, and and we were the first band on that day. So it was like, fuck, like we're playing to nobody. Like everybody's out trying to get their spots at the main stage, whatever. But we did our sound check and our line check, and I guess enough people heard a fucking Star Wars song coming from the tent and was like, what? Um, and so by the time we got our costumes on and came out, it was completely full. I think it was like 15,000 people. So that was like that was a really big one. Um,
That's freaking dope.
trying to think. Yeah. I mean, it, it's funny how difficult it is to pick now because and it's sort of going back to like if you ever hear me complain, just tell me to shut the fuck up because like it's become such a normal thing now for me to play like big festivals and stuff
Yeah.
and like arena stages and stuff. I mean, I've done some arena shows in Japan that have just been like unbelievably sick. Um, and I wish I could provide more details about that.
No, no, no. I totally get it.
But yeah, it's just it's funny like my like relatives and stuff, at Thanksgiving or whatever, they used to ask like, do you get nervous, when there's that many people, because like I've done like Rock am Ring where there's like 50,000 people or whatever. When we did those Metallica shows, it was like 60, you know what I mean? Like just crazy numbers of people. And I'm always like, no, not really. Because the thing is, like, if the place holds 60,000 people and there's 60,000 people, it's a good day. Like
Yeah.
the show is doing what it's supposed to do. If the place holds 3,000 people and there's 200 people there, you got a fucking problem, you
Big
know?
problem. Yeah.
Yeah, so that means that like things are failing. And so like that's what makes me nervous is if I go out and it's an empty room. I mean, the first time that okay, I could talk about this one. The first time that Galactic Empire well, the only time that Galactic Empire was in Japan was the first time that I played Japan. We did 3 arena shows opening up for the band that I'm in now. And uh the last one especially, I think was it the last one? It doesn't really matter. The stage was higher than the floor, obviously. So and the backstage area in these arenas was floor level. So when we went out to eventually go walk the stairs to the stage, we couldn't see. Um, if the room was full or not.
Right.
And one thing that a lot of people don't know about Japanese audiences is that they're until the show starts, they're incredibly quiet. Like you can hear yourself talk, like you can have a normal conversation at the volume that we're having over the house music. The house music is quiet. Everyone's having a normal conversation. No one's screaming. It's not like it is here or in Europe where everyone's like before the band even comes on, you've already lost your voice just trying to have a conversation with somebody. Um, so we go out there, we're the first band on, and we're like, it's like dead quiet out there, dude. Like we're about to go play to nobody. This is gonna suck. Like just already embarrassed, like, God, what a mistake, whatever,
Yeah.
like very doom and gloom. And we walked up on that stage and the entire place was full. Like and that was like the biggest surprise that I think any of us could have expected was like not only were there people there but they all showed up. That's the other thing about Japanese audiences, they show up.
That's
um
awesome.
so yeah, like they get there at doors. They get there for when the show starts, like because it's like, yeah, of course. Like to them, it's like, duh, you know what I mean? The show starts at 7. I'm here at 7. Like, what is that?
Right.
But like in the States, it's just like, okay, but what time does a headliner go on? I'll make sure I roll in around then.
That's my biggest fucking argument. Like my wife, I'm like, oh, gates are at 5. We need to be there. She's like, why? Like the band we want to see is here. I'm like, because if we don't get there to see the opener, you're never gonna find new music. Like I don't want
Right.
to, I don't want to stick with late. Like one of my favorite bands played Spotlights. They're a doomgaze band,
Mm,
based out of, I think they're in Pittsburgh now, but
okay.
they were playing with Deftones and Refused. And I was like, get there early. I want to make sure we got our spot. And they came out, and I was absolutely mesmerized for their entire set. And
That's
now, like,
sick.
I've got every fucking record. If they're within like 4 hour drive, I go to their fucking show. Like, I am not missing, I don't want to miss a show. They're just that good. And
Dude, that's so sick. Like like, it's so cool to hear that from someone who's not 18. Because like working shows for a living, I've gotten so desensitized to it that like it honestly kind of bums me out. Like my favorite band growing up was Lamb of God. Like I still think back to the first time that saw them. It was them, As I Lay Dying, Children of Bodom, God forbid, and then like every band was at the top of their game. Obviously, all of the scandals with As I Lay Dying had not hit yet.
yeah,
Um, and it was Lamb of God was on the Wrath cycle. Like it was like fucking prime, and like I still get chills thinking about that show starting, like of how sick that was. I'm friends with Lamb of God's drum tech. He used to work for the band I play for now.
right on.
And so now if I want to go to a Lamb of God show, I don't even have to pay for a ticket. But I was just sitting there just like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I don't get that. I don't get those chills anymore because that's like even though I'm enjoying what I'm watching and it's a great show and all that kind of stuff, like I don't get that feeling anymore. And so now like when I'm home and like my best friend texts me of like, "Oh, yo, this band's coming through, like you want to see him?" I'm just like, probably not.
no,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah,
because it's just it's like it's like just going to work again. You know what I mean? So it's basically like if I'm not friends with somebody that's like playing the show or working the show or whatever, like I usually don't go. And that like it bums me out. But I also know that like if I make the effort to go, I'm not gonna be like, oh, I'm so stoked that I got here. Like I'm gonna be like, I'm tired.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
um.
I
So
literally,
it's just it's good.
I saw something today that was like, I'm at the age that I'm there, I'm enjoying the show, but I'm like, man, I can't wait for it to fucking get over so I can go home.
Yeah. 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 Your knees are yelling at you all night, you know? That's the other thing. If I'm going to a show, it's like put me on the balcony or if it's an arena, put me in seats. Like do not put me in the pit. I have no interest in standing for 4 hours, you know? Um, and yeah, like it's a bummer knowing that I've like passed that point, because I mean, dude, there was one summer where, when my wife and I were still dating, where like right after college, we saw like every fucking band under the sun, and like not just metal bands, like we saw Rush, we saw Paramore, we saw Maiden, we saw Dream Theater, we saw Lamb of God, we saw like we went to Mayhem Fest. We went to, you know what I mean? It was just like basically every show that we could get a ticket to, we got it. And it was like the best summer ever, dude. Like it was so
Yeah,
sick, like just going to all these shows and standing in the pit and being sweaty as fuck and um but you're just there with your person and you're like the happiest kid in the fucking world. And now like when someone's like, "Yo, like Metallica's coming to Philly," I'm like, "That's cool. I'm not going."
have
You
fun with
know,
that.
like,
I'm gonna fucking just
yeah,
hang out. Yeah,
it's like, I'm not friends with anybody in Metallica. I don't have any reason to go. You know what I mean? Which is like such like an old jaded man outlook on things, but
yes,
it's just what the job has done to me. Because even if it's like a band that I'm stoked to see, I'm not really watching the band anymore. Because like I know that they're good. Like I'm like watching, I'm like, oh, the guitar tech tripped. You know what I mean? Like I'm picking up on the shit that's happening like outside of the scope of the stage. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Or like at that Lamb of God show, it was that co-headliner that they did with Mastodon. And Mastodon had all this video wall and all this really cool synchronized stuff. And the whole time I'm just thinking, they must be playing to a click. I didn't think this band played to a click, but like you have to have time code in order to do all of this video wall stuff. So
Yeah.
if they're not playing to a click, this is really impressive. And I'm saying all this shit to my wife, and she's like, "What the fuck are you?" You know what I mean? Like that's
She's
what
like,
you're
enjoy the
thinking about,
fucking
right?
show.
Yeah, she's like, is that what you're thinking about right now? And then Lamb of God comes out, they don't have a video wall, and I'm like, all right, Mastodon was definitely playing to a click. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like I'm not thinking about the show anymore. So or like I'm not thinking about the performance. I'm thinking about the show, the logistics
yeah.
behind everything of like, oh, that LD's doing a great job. You know what I mean? Like it's and even though it's like something of note, it's not the reason that you're you're supposed to be going to the show. You're
Right.
supposed to be getting there for like a release and to be excited to see your favorite band and whatever it is. And I just don't get that anymore. I'm just like, it smells like piss in here. Like you know what I mean? Like I don't like it.
Dude, the body odor is so bad, especially at the
Yeah.
smaller metal shows. Like you go and
Oh
you're like,
yeah.
God, you guys haven't showered in like a week, have you? It's fucking
It's
terrible.
unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Like, listen, man, I understand that like not all of us are in the same financial situation, but deodorant is not expensive. Like, for the
Right.
love of God.
Like
Like,
handing out care kits here.
yeah, seriously, just fix it. It's a really easy problem to fix.
Oh, that's fucking funny. Um, Chris, I'm sure you have other shit to do tonight. I appreciate your time. I'm gonna tell you, anytime you come through Louisville, let me know, dude. I'll take you out. We'll go get some lunch at some killer fucking restaurants here.
Hell yeah.
Um, and I look forward to seeing what else comes from Hillhaven, dude. I'm really gonna be looking forward to vinyl really soon. So even
I'll do
you know,
my best. I promise. I promise.
hell
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, man,
dude.
I appreciate your time. I'll definitely let you know when I swing through at Louisville next.
Hell yeah, dude. Go and have yourself a great day.
Likewise, man. See ya.
Thanks. See ya.